Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, context is everything. Media Network. Founder and CEO, John Michael, is reading a textbook cover to cover. Today, we read Chapter 25, Section 5. China in the New Imperialism. China and the New Imperialism. Yesterday, we read about the English, the British, and their takeover of India. Today, now, John Michael, Context is Everything Media Network founder and CEO, CFO, social media marketer. Please subscribe. Please like. I will do more. I will do other things other than read this textbook, but the ethics remain. Context is everything. So let's read. China and the New Imperialism. Setting the scene. By the 1830s, British merchant ships were arriving in China loaded with opium to sell to the Chinese. One Chinese official complained bitterly to Britain's Queen Victoria. I have heard that smoking opium is strictly forbidden in your country, the Chinese diplomat said. Why do you let this evil drug be sent to harm people in other countries? Good point, Chinese diplomat. For centuries, Chinese regulations had ensured that China had a favorable balance of trade with other nations. The phrase balance of trade refers to the difference between how much a country imports and how much it exports. By the 1800s, however, Western nations were using their growing power to gain more influence over East Asia. Heading. Number 1. The trade issue. Trade issue. Prior to 1800s, the Chinese rulers placed strict limits on foreign traders. European merchants were restricted to a small area of southern China. China sold them silk, porcelain, and tea in exchange for gold and silver. Under this arrangement, China enjoyed a trade surplus, exporting more than it imported. Westerners, on the other hand, had a trade deficit, with China buying more from China than they sold to them. By the late 1700s, two developments were underway that would transform China's relations with the Western world. First, China entered a period of decline. Second, the Industrial Revolution created a new need for expanding markets for European goods. At the same time, it gave the West's superior military power. The Opium War. During the late 1700s, British merchants began making huge profits by trading opium grown in India for Chinese tea, which was popular in Britain. Soon, many Indians became addicted to this drug. Silver flowing out of China in payments for the drug disrupted the economy. The Chinese government outlawed opium and executed Chinese drug dealers. They called for Britain to stop the trade. The British refused, insisting on the right of free trade. In 1839, Chinese warships clashed with British merchants, triggering the Opium War. British gunboats, equipped with the latest firepower, bombarded Chinese coastal and river ports. With outdated weapons and fighting methods, the Chinese were easily defeated. Unequal treaties. In 1842, Britain made China accept the Treaty of Nanjing. Britain received a huge indemnity or payment for losses in the war. The British also gained the island of Hong Kong. China had opened 5 ports to foreign trade to grant British citizens in China extraterritorially the right to live under their own laws and be tried in their own courts if they were in China. How strange is that? The treaty was the first of a series of unequal treaties that forced China to make concessions to Western powers. During the mid-1800s, under the pressure from the West, China agreed to open up more ports to foreign trade and let Christian missionaries preach in China. New heading: Internal problems. Very good. Very good. 0 calorie, tea extract, real sweetener, stevia leaf extract, and monk fruit. Natural flavors, amino acids, L-theanine, ascorbic acid, citric acid. Pretty good. Guilt-free tea. That's how I do ad reads. So if you want to pay me to do ad reads, I could do better than that. But that wasn't that bad. By the 1800s, the Qing, is that Qing? Is that Qing Dynasty? Was in decline. Irrigation systems and canals were poorly maintained, leading to massive flooding in Huanghe Valley. The population explosion that had begun in the century earlier created a terrible hardship for Chinese peasants. An extravagant court tax, evasion by the rich, and widespread official corruption added to the peasants' burden. Even the honored civil service system was racked by bribery and scandals. The Taiping Rebellion. As poverty and misery increased, the peasant rebellion in Taiping As poverty and misery increased, peasants rebelled. The Taiping Rebellion, which lasted from 1850 to 1864, was probably the most devastating peasant revolt in history. That's worth a sticky note. Yikes. Probably the most devastating peasant revolt in history. The leader, Hong Shui-Shuang, was a village schoolteacher. Inspired by a religious vision, he set himself up as a revolutionary prophet. He wanted to establish a heavenly kingdom of great peace, the Taiping. Influenced by the teachings of Christian missionaries, Hong endorsed social ideas that Chinese leaders considered radical. These included land reform, community ownership of property, and equality of women and men. Above all, he called for the end of the hated Qing Dynasty, Qing Dynasty. The Taiping Rebellion won control of large parts of China. They held out for 14 years. However, with the help of loyal regional governors and generals, the government crushed the rebellion in the end. 14 years, pretty good run for a rebellion to hold firm. But I guess it was inevitable, unfortunately. It sounds like they had the right idea. I don't know that, though. My context is not fully developed in this regard. I know about maybe, what would this be? 250 words. I know about 250 words about the Taiping Rebellion and what they stand for. But it sounds like they had the right idea based off of those 250 words. Am I being manipulated to think that? That's entirely possible. I think that this textbook, just as every textbook, is loaded with propaganda. Effects. The Taiping Rebellion almost toppled the Qing Dynasty. I also don't know how to pronounce that. Qing Dynasty. It is estimated to have caused the deaths of between 20 million and 30 million Chinese. Not good. The Qing government survived, but it had shared power with regional commanders. During the rebellion, Europeans kept up pressure on China. Russia seized lands in northern China. Reform efforts. New heading. By the end of the mid-1800s, Now, by the mid-1800s, educated Chinese were divided over the need to adopt Western ways. Most scholar officials saw no reason for new industries because China's wealth and taxes came from land. Although China's merchants were allowed to do business, they were not seen as a source of prosperity. Scholar officials also disapproved of the ideas of Western missionaries, whose emphasis on individual choice challenged the Confucian order. They saw Western technology as dangerous, too, because they threatened the Confucian ways that had served China successfully for so long. This imperial court was a center of conservative opposition. By the late 1800s, the Empress Cixi Cixi, had gained power. A strong-willed ruler, she surrounded herself with advisors who deeply committed to Confucian traditions. Here's a picture of it, of this meetings with the emperor, and here's Cixi. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. My name is John Michael at the Context is Everything Media Network. We have about 2 pages left here, but I'd like to remind you, as the social media marketer and manager here at the Context is Everything Media Network, please subscribe if you've made it this far. Please like. And please play these videos for your little dog on repeat to help the channel. And to also help your dog while you're away, because sometimes life brings you away from home to places that aren't dog friendly, and you need to leave your little pup on your own. And they want company. Let's be honest, they're sentient beings just like you and I. Give your puppy what they desire. Turn on the radio. Turn on the Context is Everything Media Network. #1 in canine viewership. Very good, yes. Self-strengthening movement. In the late 1860s, reformers launched what became known as the self-strengthening movement. They imported Western technology, setting up factories to make modern weapons. They developed shipyards, railroads, mining, and light industry. The Chinese translated Western works of science, government, and economy. However, the movement made limited progress because the government did not really rally behind it. Oh yeah, that's good. War with Japan. I'm talking about the drink. The drink is good. War with Japan. Meanwhile, the Western powers in nearby Japan moved rapidly ahead. Japan began to modernize after 1868. It then joined the Western imperialists in the competition for global empire. In 1894, Japanese pressure on China led to the Sino-Japanese War. It ended in disaster for China, with Japan gaining the island of Taiwan off the coast of China. When the two powers met at a peace table, there was a telling difference. Japanese officials were dressed in Western clothes, and Chinese in traditional robes. Weird. Spheres of influence. The crushing defeat revealed China's weakness. The Western powers moved swiftly to carve out spheres of influence along the Chinese coast. The British took the Yangtze River Valley. The French acquired the territory near their colony in Indochina. Germany and Russia gained territory in northern China. The United States, a longtime trader with the Chinese, did not take part in carving up of China. It feared that European powers might shut out American merchants. A few years later, in 1899, it called for policy to keep Chinese trade open to everyone on an equal basis. The imperial powers more or less accepted the idea of open-door policy, as it came to be called. No one, however, consulted with the Chinese about this policy. That sounds like it's significant. It does sound like it's significant. Let's put a sticky note on it. Why don't we? 100 Days of Reform. 100 Days, one of my songs. Defeated by Japan and humiliated by Westerners, the Chinese looked for a scapegoat. Reformers blamed conservatives soon. Reformers affected schools and military and bureaucracy. Conservatives soon rallied behind the reform effort. The emperor was imprisoned, and the aging empress, Cixi, reasserted control. Reformers fled for their lives. Final heading. The Qing Dynasty falls. As the century ended, China was in turmoil. Anger grew against Christian missionaries who battled Chinese thinkers like Confucius. The presence of foreign troops was another source of discontent. Protected by extraterritoriality, foreigners ignored Chinese laws and lived in their own communities. The Boxer Uprising. Anti-foreign feeling finally exploded in the Boxer Uprising. In 1899, a group of Chinese had formed a secret society, the Righteous Harmonious Fists. The Righteous Harmonious Fists. Lots of good language going on here, not gonna lie. That's a good name for something. The Righteous Harmonious Fists. Let's see what the Righteous Harmonious Fists were up to. Westerners watched them train in the martial arts, dubbed them boxers. Their goal was to drive out foreign devils who were polluting the land with their un-Chinese ways, strange buildings, machines, and telegraph lines. In 1900, the Boxers, as they were known, attacked foreigners across China. In response, the Western powers of Japan organized multinational force. It crushed the Boxers and rescued foreigners besieged in Beijing. The Empress Cixi at first supported the Boxers, but reversed her policy as they retreated. Aftermath of the uprising. China, once again, had to make concessions to foreigners. The defeat, however, forced even Chinese conservatives to support Westernization. In the rush to reform, China admitted women to schools and stressed science and mathematics in place of Confucian thought. More students were sent abroad to study. China expanded economically as well. Mining, shipping, railroads, banking, and exports of cash crops grew. With foreign capital, small-scale Chinese industry developed. A Chinese business class emerged, and a new urban working class began to press for rights as Western workers had done. That sounds like it was pretty interesting. 3 principles of the people. Although the Boxer Uprising failed, flames of Chinese nationalism spread. Reformers wanted to strengthen the Chinese government. By the early 1900s, they had introduced constitutional monarchy. Some reformers called for the republic. A passionate spokesman for the Chinese Republic was Sun Yixan. Sun had studied in the West. In the early 1900s, he organized the Revolutionary Alliance. His goal was to build China on 3 principles of the people. The first principle was nationalism, freeing China from foreign domination. The second was democracy. The representative government was democracy or representative government, rather. The third was livelihood, or economic security for all Chinese. Birth of a republic. Zero sugar. Loaded with polyphenols and vitamin C. Choose a real. When you want iced tea, choose the real stuff. When Cixi died in 1908, and the 2-year-old boy inherited the throne, China slipped into chaos. In 1911, uprisings in the provinces swiftly spread. Peasants, students, local warlords, and even court politicians helped topple the Qing dynasty. Sun Yixuan hurried home from a trip to the United States in December 1911. He was named president of the new Chinese Republic. From the outset, the republic faced overwhelming problems. For the next 37 years, China was almost constantly at war with itself or fighting off foreign invasions. So here's Sun Yixuan. Where does Mao come in? Now I'm curious, because that's the end of the chapter. Thank you. I hope you have a lovely day. I hope you enjoy the weather. I hope you enjoy all of the blessings that you have, even if some things are hard. That's how it goes. Goodbye. God bless.